Hey there, folks. Have you ever thought about going to law school? Well, Caitlin did. I had an informational interview with her, and I thought at the last second, why don't we just record this? So, if you've ever wondered about how I got into lawyering or why I wound up working with nonprofits, this is that story, plus some advice for those of you who may ever think about going to law school. Stay tuned and find out. Welcome to Charity Therapy, a podcast about building better nonprofits. I'm your host, Jess Birkin.
My name is Katlyn Martin, and I am an AmeriCorps member. I just moved up here to the Twin Cities. I'm working as a volunteer coordinator, and I am looking to go to law school after this year.
Right on. I was teasing you before that I was going to try and talk you out of going to law school because it's so much money, and you don't necessarily make bucket loads of money after law school either. And based on what you have shared, it also sounds like you might have the inclination to work in the nonprofit sector in some way as well.
Yes, that is my hope.
So you really don't want to make any money in your life.
pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Right on. So what is really making you want to go to law school, though?
I am really passionate about a lot of different things, but I really think that to shape and change laws and how our society functions, you have to understand them. And so that's kind of my desire to go to law school. And that there are a few different areas that I think I may want to work, but having an understanding, a very concrete and solid understanding of how the laws are created and shaped, I think will give me the skills for future work.
Right on. I feel like there are two generally buckets that people fall into who go to law school. They're like people who are really interested in like justice and, the people. And then there are just people who straight up just want to make money or be quote unquote successful or whatever. So you're one of my justice peeps.
Yes, definitely the
so
first
that's
bucket.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm in that wheelhouse too.
Yes.
Definitely. What was your undergrad?
I majored in political science with a minor in urban poverty at St. Louis University down in Missouri.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you're totally going to be in the nonprofit sector. That's what's happening. Or maybe government. Have you ever thought about that?
I have thought about government. I would consider running for elected office or doing like policy legislative work in some capacity.
Okay, right on. So we have to make sure you don't say anything terribly incriminating on this recording.
Yes,
because
we really
it will come back to you in your campaign.
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool. So what issues are you sort of interested in today? And like, what can I tell you that you think might be helpful?
So I'm working at a nonprofit right now that does a lot of housing and jobs focused things. And so I'm spending a lot of time thinking and learning about that. And then I'm also really interested in access to education, particularly higher education was a lot of what I studied. But I was just really interested to know more about how you have found this really cool intersection between law and nonprofit work and how you get to use the legal skills to help nonprofits do their work better. And I think that's something that I also would find myself being interested in, like the intersection of issues and organizations.
Okay. So what was the question in there?
It was just a long rant.
It was how did I come to find this weird intersection?
Yeah. I'm interested in hearing more about your story of how you have shifted to where you are now.
So, I mean, now, I'm, today at the time of this recording, I am 41 going on 42. And now I know that my mission, essentially, like my calling is to empower nonprofits to grow by doing things right. So whether that's giving them the right tools, the right connections, or the right coaching. And that's on our law firm mission statement, right? That's our stuff. How I arrived there was sort of a long, convoluted path. I didn't start out thinking I would end up being a lawyer for nonprofits. I actually went to law school and had watched a lot of LA Law and Law and Order growing up and really wanted to be a criminal trial attorney. I thought that those cases were really exciting. I enjoyed watching a lot of TV and movies around trial lawyering. And I was really good at those in school. I graduated near the top of my class and I got straight A's in all of those subjects. And so it seemed like it was going to be a really natural fit for me to be a criminal trial attorney. But the reality was when I actually, and I worked throughout law school, I worked as as a Ramsey County Attorney's Office student attorney. So I had some courtroom experience in juvenile court. And then I worked at an employment litigator plaintiff side law firm for a solo. And she was awesome. And her husband also worked in the same office, and he was a public defender and a private criminal defense attorney. So I had done a bunch of work, but then once I actually got out into the real world, I started clerking for a judge, which is sort of one of the jobs that you hope to get out of law school because, you know, it looks good on your resume and like, you know, you're getting a lot of experience. So I clerked for the Honorable Krista K. Martin in Pine County, Minnesota, which was a really great experience. She was an amazing judge. I was just constantly like baffled with how much of the law that she actually had in her head because it's a 2-judge county and we did everything. So we did civil, family court, probate, litigation, conciliation court, you name it, you know, CHIPS, child endangerment stuff, truancy, I mean, whatever. We just did everything because there was only 2 judges in that county. So I really got sort of a full view of all of the different things that I could be doing as a trial attorney, and I didn't like it.
Okay.
I'm a very like empathetic, sort of sensitive person, and I found that I would really take my work home with me and sort of really worry about like, okay, we have, you know, custody dispute. Both parents are meth addicts. They each say they've cleaned up. Which parent should get custody of the 2-year-old? I'm like helping to do the research and write the opinion for this. And it was just really heavy. Or I would watch a criminal trial and it was like, oh. And I started to realize that no matter which side of the table I was on, I was just not really enamored with any of the reality. You know, it's not like Law and Order.
Yeah.
It's not all amazing closing statements by Sam Watterson. So I would talk to other lawyers in the courthouse and they would be like, oh yeah, you know, like you'll just, after a while, you'll just get a callus and you won't care as much. And I was like, oh, that really sounds terrible.
Yeah.
So I graduated from law school in 2007. And so the bottom dropped out of the economy shortly thereafter. So I was clerking for the judge. I have my like magna cum laude A game resume and the economy goes to hell and there were no jobs. So I ended up going back to school and getting a master's in nonprofit management. And that's where I really realized like, oh, these are my people. Like I've always worked in the nonprofit sector. I just didn't think of it that way. And then I ended up getting a job at a large nonprofit where I was not necessarily lawyering. I was doing grant compliance and contracts work and real estate transactions. And so it effectively was lawyering, but like in an in-house capacity. And I was embedded in the accounting and public finance team. And I was there for almost 5 years. And then I ended up leaving and going into private practice. And at the time, when I went back to school and got my master's, I was like, I'm never going to be a lawyer. This was a dead end. You know, education is never a waste, but I just blew a lot of years going to school. And I didn't feel too bad about going back for a master's because I had gotten almost a full ride to law school. So it was like, well, my student loan situation won't be any worse than anyone else.
Yeah.
So I was very blessed in that capacity to kind of get a second crack at it. But yeah, basically I just kind of found that intersection when I completed my master's and was working there and realizing like I can do so much more. I'm like this nonprofit Swiss Army knife right now. And I could either choose to like continue to drill down into federal grants compliance and like deeper into one sort of mission-based area, or go work for government and do more compliance work, or I could try and help more nonprofits. And so that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah. How many like nonprofits around the cities do you work with in different capacities?
That's a great question. I don't know my numbers. This is a bad episode of Shark Tank. I want to say, well, I work with all of the neighborhoods in the city of Minneapolis. So the city contracts with me.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. So I get to work with all of the neighborhood organizations that want to work with me in the city of Minneapolis, and there are about 70 of those. And then I have my subscription legal services program, and I want to say we probably have about 30 subscribers that are not neighborhoods. And then I have, clients that have been with me a long time since before the subscription started that pop up periodically for project work. And then sometimes, organizations come in they need something specific. Like I'm working on a dissolution right now, and a dissolving organization is not going to become a subscriber. They have a very concrete need for one single thing. It's kind of like how many open cases do I have at the moment is always sort of a shifting thing because organizations come in, they get their work done, and then they go out, or they're a subscriber and we work together on sort of a continuing basis, but we might not have like a case.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of stuff do you do with the neighborhoods? I'm very interested in that.
So neighborhood organizations in Minneapolis and in St. Paul and throughout the greater state of Minnesota, I'm sure, are mostly organized as 501c3 public charities. They can also be C4s, because they serve sort of like a defined population. Yeah. But most of the neighborhoods that I work with are C3s because they really serve the public. They're holding lots of events and doing programming that's open to people who don't live in the neighborhood. They're trying to like provide community services, hold events that are open to the public, and provide sort of a conduit from the citizens to municipal government. So it's almost like they serve as sort of an intermediary in an informal way between the electorate and the city council and city government. So as a youth and government type person, you should be all over that.
Yeah. I think the neighborhood associations here are something that I've been able to interact with a little bit since I've been here and didn't do as much like on campus and stuff in undergrad. So I think they're cool.
It's tough to interact with a neighborhood association on campus because you're on campus.
Yeah.
You're not
little different, not quite a neighborhood.
Yeah.
So are you one of the only law firm in the area that does this kind of work where you work with nonprofits in this intersection, or?
I'm actually not. I think the last time I checked, the state of Minnesota had about 8,000 various nonprofits. And when we say nonprofits, I mean that really, like, there's a huge range of organizations, right? You have like big, huge, mega, like the University of Minnesota and like all the universities and institutions of higher education. And then you have hospitals, right? That's a whole realm of nonprofit organizations too. And there are lawyers in the Twin Cities, my friend Heidi Neff Christensen and some others who that's basically their world. They are working with those big institutions that have lots of subsidiaries and lots of higher level functioning things going on. They're doing great big projects, building huge things, having massive donation campaigns, like mega nonprofits. Then you have like another layer where it's like the Nature Conservancy, United Way, Red Cross, Boy Scouts of America, big national organizations that have a regional presence here. And they usually have in-house counsel, but then I'm sure they also leverage outside counsel. But big organizations tend to go to the big law firms downtown. I'm sure that just feels right to them. So the size of the organization that I work is usually an emerging organization to a mid-size national nonprofit. Not so much like the number of staff or the number of dollars, but sort of like the mindset, right? Like if you envision yourself as like lean and scrappy, you're going to end up with a solo attorney versus going downtown and paying downtown prices and feeling like I need to be downtown.
Yeah.
You can't see the room we're in if you're listening, but it's like exposed brick and like an old warehouse with a bunch of artists and like weird, there's a videographer next door and the office across the hall has like a painter in it making paintings. It's a very non-traditional.
It's a very nice building. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah. We like it here in the Arts District. Yeah, so it's like the market that I'm working with is small. And then even within that, there are several lawyers just like me. I mean, we all do our own thing, but solo, on your own, working with nonprofits. Emmett Robertson is a friend and competitor who is amazing. My old partner is out there, Eve Bornstein, who is just like amazing and flies all over the world teaching at CPA conferences and consulting and like testifying before the IRS for Congress. Like she's amazing. So there are a handful of us that are like in that same sort of organizational size or market, or it's just one attorney. But then there are several big law firms that have nonprofit departments that are servicing the bigger organizations primarily.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier when you were clerking for the judge that you sometimes would like take your work home with you and things. Do you feel like in a role like this, working with nonprofits, you can have a good work-life balance as an attorney and as someone that works in nonprofits? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my work-life balance is the best it's ever been, mostly because I'm my own boss. So that has a lot to do with it because, you know, org culture and your company culture can vary widely depending on where you work. But the way I took my work home with me at the clerkship was more psychically took it home with me, like lay awake at night worrying about things. And I don't do that at all anymore. It's really good. I mean, my clients, when they have problems, they're very serious to them and they take them very seriously, but no one is losing their life, going to prison, not having the opportunity to parent their child, or, you know what I mean? Like it's the stakes are in some way for me mentally lower, so that allows me to have less anxiety about it while still wanting good outcomes for my clients, of course.
Yeah. What would you say your favorite part of your job is?
That's a good one. I really like all the parts. Obviously, I mean, like I love working with my clients. It's super satisfying, especially doing the subscription because we have an ongoing relationship and I can help prevent a lot of problems. I think coming from an in-house background, I really don't like when something is a garbage fire and we should have addressed it 6 months ago to keep the damage small and the cost minimum. Like I really like to be on the preventative side of things, which is why I didn't like trial work, because it was like, oh, the toothpaste is already out of the tube. This is janitorial service. Like you're trying to clean up a mess. I don't enjoy cleaning up messes as much as I enjoy preemptively solving problems or helping make a problem smaller through conflict resolution or sort of like using my mediation skills and PR skills to sort of keep things reasonable. So I like that part of the lawyering. And then I just really love running the business. A lot of people say like, oh, Jess is such an innovator. And I mean, like, that's a nice compliment, but really I'm just trying to bring like modern day business practices to the practice of law. I really have fun doing that. Like I really enjoy the like making things work better, thinking about client experience, making some new tool that like I can offer to my customers. Like it's just that part of it is really fun.
That's cool. If there were like any books or like experiences or skills that you think are good to like read or to try to gain or to learn about for a job like this, what do you have any thoughts on things like that?
I think when you go to law school, because I can tell I'm not going to talk you out of it. You're too justice oriented. Bless you. So I would say when you're in law school, I would really recommend that you take every opportunity to do, like if there's a practicum where you get to go do some work for school credit, do that. If you can do clerkships, even if they're unpaid during law school, to get an idea of what you like and what you don't like while you're in school, because the reality is law school has nothing to do with being a lawyer at all. And the culture of law school is super demented and cruel and like will warp you as a human.
Noted.
Just follow my Twitter feed. You'll see it's true. So like getting out into the real world and seeing what lawyering actually looks like is important. And I would say that I did that and I still found reality to be difficult. So the more that you can kind of get a sense of the day-to-day grind of what does this look like to do this all day, every day, because it's not all just reading Supreme Court opinions and thinking about concepts, you know, it's like dealing with the real, like messy world of humanity and our justice system, which is the best thing that the world basically has as far as like Western justice goes, but it's still super messed up and there's a lot of problems with it. So I think the more that you can kind of like get a day-to-day flavor of what those different jobs look like, the better. So do more of these. Do more informational interviews and get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And to the extent that I can introduce you to anybody, you should let me know because I'd be happy to do that.
That'd be great.
Right on. Well, this feels like a good place for me to ask you my 3 wrap-up questions.
All right.
All right. So 3 questions that we ask everyone. Number 1, is there a cause or a charity that you would like to give a shout out to?
Yes. Project for Pride in Living is an organization in South Minneapolis that I work for right now. And we do a lot of really cool things focusing on supportive and affordable housing and job and career readiness all across the Twin Cities. We're always looking for volunteers, for tutor mentors, for donations, and really work to help make sure that everyone has the skills to start whatever career they're looking for and to have a place to call their home.
Right on. You hear that, PPL? You're doing a good job. Your employees want to shout you out. All right. Question number 2. What is the strangest job you've ever had or like the weirdest thing you've ever had to do at work?
I work at Hy-Vee like when I'm home, or it was my college and high school job, and I worked customer service. And so I don't know if I have a specific example, but that job came with so many just strange interactions where I was like, I'd like
to return this can of beans that are half eaten. Yep. I just didn't enjoy them.
Mm-hmm. And you're like, I don't even know like where to start. So just customer service in general, I think comes with its
fair
fun times.
Yes, fair. Okay, so since you are sort of between educational phases, question number 3 is, what advice would you give to a new college grad who's like sort of considering their next steps?
I would say that there's not a right answer for what you're supposed to do after you graduate. And so that could be working, that could be grad school. I really like years of service, which I'm doing right now. It's been a great time to reset and have opportunities like this to kind of figure out what I want to do in the future and explore a new city.
Yeah.
So.
Plus it's like work experience too. So it's kind of a twofer to do AmeriCorps or something like that.
Yeah.
I love it. And you get an educational credit still?
There is. Yep. There's an education stipend.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here and letting me record your informational interview.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's our show. Be sure to follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Jess Birkin. We want to hear from you. Send us a message at our website, charitytherapy.show. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at birkinlaw.com/signup. Charity Therapy is a production of Birkin Law Office, PLLC. Our theme song is by Whalehawk. And remember, folks, this podcast is produced for your entertainment and is not a substitute for actual legal advice.